Hi, I'm B from Nectar Mechanics, and on today's video, we're going to be making Minecraft frogs in a jar? So, whenever I go to like a dollar store for hot glue and stuff, I always see these cute little jars, and I'm like, oh, I'll get that, it's a cute little jar, it must be useful for something. And then you end up with 20 jars that have just sat there still in the packaging because you have no idea what to do with them. So I've made it my mission to actually use those jars. I thought it would be really fun after doing the Minecraft train video last week to make some more Minecraft frogs, but we're going to change things up a bit. What we're going to be doing is making almost essentially a mini terrarium, like a ship in a bottle diorama type thing. So to start things off, I decided to do a quick rough sketch in my drawing pad. Very rough, but it got the basic idea out. The basic premise is having half of it being mud, half of it being water with a nice lovely mangrove tree. I'm trying to sort of base this biome off the new biomes that they've added in 1.19. So once I finished with the planning, I got two little dollar store trees, same place where I got those jars from, and hot glued them together to create one larger tree, as it was a bit too small on its own. Once I glued the two trees together, I added some tinfoil. The tinfoil acted as an armature for me to then cover it in air-dry clay. This air-dry clay not only helped unify the two trees together, but it allowed me to sculpt those iconic mangrove roots that they have, the ones that are sort of holding it up in the water. Once that was done, I wanted to figure out how I was actually going to build this inside the jar and make it fit properly, because I can't just eyeball it. So my first thought was to create paper mache templates of the inside of the jar, but the PVA glue would probably leave nasty smears all over the jar. So what I realized I could do instead is I could measure the diameter of the bottom of the jar, being about 6 centimeters. Then I used my protractor, measured out at 6 centimeters, to then create a cardboard template that I could use to build everything on. I did about 2 layers just to make sure it was strong, and then I started adding the cool details to it. One half was going to be mud, so I just used chunks of air-dry clay for that, and the other half was going to be the water. So I used hot glue, and then pulled sheets of cellophane really tight, and the wrinkles in the cellophane would give it nice texture of ripples and stuff in the water. To be entirely honest, you could probably get a decent enough effect with just clay, because the transparency of the hot glue didn't really get used in the end, but you could still use the cellophane on clay, so that's something to point out. Now that the mud and water was done, it was time to add the tree, and I ended up having to redo all of the roots that I had done for the most part, because they were all too thick compared to the actual trunk of the tree, and because I was doing it with fresh, soft air-dry clay, I was able to mold it to the terrain better. I should have just done it last anyway. So we have a tree, we have mud, we have water, we've got basically all of the terrain done. All that's left is our frogs. For my first frog, who we're going to call Sam here, he's in a fairly default pose, just to try and get the anatomy of the frog correct. Now, as you can see, he's not exactly one-to-one for realism of the frog, but it's definitely closer than my Minecraft cube ones from last week. Once he was done, I started to work on his friend, who we're going to call Nigel here. Nigel is having the time of his life. He is mid-run / swim or whatever, and I wanted him to have a giant tongue sticking out, because frogs are known for their tongue, and it would help differentiate the two a lot more. Because Sam is in a default pose, it meant that I could almost visualize what he should look like normally, the new one, and essentially pose that, and then figure it out from there. Once the frogs were sanded and nice how I wanted them, it was time for the painting, and even though I'm sculpting them fairly realistic, I wanted to make sure that they were painted Minecrafty so that it was obvious what I'm going for. I started off by doing the base. I wanted the mud to be fairly blue, because the Minecraft blocks are more blue than they are brown. It helps distinct them from the dirt. And then the water, I wanted it to be more greener, because the new swamp biomes are a lot more vibrant with those colours. The tree itself was fairly boring or whatever, just brown and green, but then I made sure to do a little bit of dry brushing on the leaves and on the mud to help give it a nice texture and differentiation. I just did that with doing various lighter shades of the same colour, so it was a lighter blue with a lighter blue with a lighter blue for the mud, and then green for the tree. So the terrain was fairly easy, and then the frogs themselves, they were even easier. I tried dry brushing them, they looked bad, so I just kept it as doing a orange coat, then a yellow underbelly, and then red for Nigel's tongue. Now, as I found last time with the Minecraft train, orange is a tricky paint to use, and it had to take a lot of coats to look decent, but after about the 5th or 6th, it looked really good. Now, up until this point, I hadn't really tried getting it to fit in the jar. I had done it at the very start just to see if the circle was the right size, the base cardboard plate, but I hadn't done it after painting or anything, because why would you? It's the final step. So I glued all the frogs together, glued the tree, everything was all connected. It was time to slot it in, and of course that's when the tongue decided to snap off. it was fine. It was fine. A little blob of super glue and we're on our way. And that was it. This is like one of my quickest projects yet. I did it in less than a week because I was procrastinating on doing last week's video because ADHD. But hey, I think it turned out really nicely. Let's see what you think. That's brilliant, isn't it? It's one of my favorite things I've made so far. I know I say that pretty much every time, but I really like how vibrant the colors are. There's also such a weird novelty of having an entire world just in the palm of your hand, contained within a vial. So yeah, that's been really fun. And yeah, make sure to subscribe, as in probably a month, because this one's a trickier project, I'm gonna be 3D printing a Doom Guy action figure. I've not done any 3D printed works on the channel yet, have I? It's gonna be fun. Catch you next time. Farewell! Ooh, why does my knee crack? Then I could use my compass? Then I use my